Hey everyone. This video is a lot. Um, it's kind of rare for a game to affect me the way Metal Gear Solid 2 did. And it was an emotional roller coaster making this video. Because I was already in a pretty tough place with recent events, and I wanted to make a quick content warning. I'm not really sure what it is, but I think that if you have a serious amount of anxiety about the world burning, this video is not going to affect that in a good way. So make of that what you will. In 2018, the New York Times published a 30,000-word feature on the 10 years between 1979 and 1989, when climate change was recognized as a nonpartisan issue that needed to be addressed right then and there, and then it failed. Instead of a whole step to address the issue, a series of half steps and vague promises prevented any real action from being taken. At the beginning of the article, the writer Nathaniel Rich asks the question, is it a comfort or a curse, the knowledge that we could have avoided all this? Since reading the article, that question has followed me. In a way, I'm always happier to know the truth, no matter how hard it is to accept. But I'd be lying if I said reading this article made me feel any better. Instead, it made me feel ill and powerless, like the world we are left with was neglected by the people who made all the decisions before we were even born. As I let the controller fall into my lap as I watched Raiden learn about the lack of his own free will, acting as a pawn in a chess game of a higher group trying to gain control of the world's information output and preservation, I saw this reflection of how I feel about the massive tech companies I used to dream of reporting on when I graduated in journalism. The message the game was trying to convey to us mirrored my feelings toward the companies that distill all of the information we consume by using calculated algorithms that remove the human element from all online interaction. I felt as sick and helpless as I did when I read that article years ago. As you play Metal Gear Solid 2, it sets up a world that feels familiar and then tears it down around you. It tells you that nothing you see is real unless you want to believe it is, and it blends reality and fiction around you, the player, and Raiden, the character you control, making it hard to figure out what your reality is. And that's the whole point. When this game came out, Raiden was a massive surprise to players who were expecting to play the game as Solid Snake once again. In fact, you do get to play as Snake during the opening prologue as he infiltrates a tanker that houses Metal Gear Ray, the latest version of the Metal Gear weapon. The Marines were secretly working on this iteration, and Snake is originally there to find proof. It turns out when he gets to the ship, he isn't alone, and another team of terrorists is there to steal Metal Gear. A Russian team of mercenaries led by Colonel Gurlukovich and his daughter Olga are behind the attack, aiding Revolver Ocelot, the sharpshooting assassin from the first Metal Gear Solid. Ocelot's grand plan is to steal the Metal Gear Ray and take it for himself. In a final standoff between Ocelot and the Marines, Ocelot kills Gurlukovich and escapes with the Metal Gear, but not before evolving into Liquid Snake. In the first game, his arm was severed and was replaced by Liquid's arm, and apparently that means Liquid has the ability to take over Ocelot's body at will. Straight up, that is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. As the tanker is destroyed, Snake goes down with it and is presumed dead and responsible for the attack. After the mission ends, time progresses 2 years into the future, and the player is presented with a masked figure to play as whose codename is also Snake, but is changed to Raiden because of the negativity associated with the name Snake. As he removes the mask, surprise, you're presented with a clean-shaven young man with a golden mane. Raiden is the polar opposite of Snake. Instead of being a grizzled soldier who hits on everyone, Raiden is a softer-spoken rookie whose girlfriend of a few years is along for the ride as his advisor. He's not comfortable with killing people, but he feels as though he will do what he has to ensure the president is safe and the mission is successful. And most importantly, where Snake is keenly aware of who he is and what he has done in the past, Raiden's past seems to be locked away out of his reach. Initially, Raiden's mission is to infiltrate the Big Shell, a large oil filtration facility that was built to reverse the effects of an oil spill outside New York in order to disarm the terrorists and rescue the president who they took hostage. The mission sounds stressful, as it should be with the president's life on the line, but Raiden feels that he is as equipped as he can be for this mission because he's done the simulation countless times in VR, and the missions are indistinguishable from real life, an important part of this story. With the colonel in his ear giving him directives and his girlfriend Rose there to save his progress, Raiden feels confident in the situation. But as the mission starts to unfold, things start to get more and more bizarre and farther away from what Raiden's training has prepared him for. The objectives start to shift and something feels oddly familiar about what is playing out here, like the game is nodding to the game that came before it. Initially, it appears that the terrorists are trying to gain access to nuclear warheads in order to set off a bomb in the atmosphere, destroying electronic devices across the entire world. The president is a necessary part of the plan because his vital signs are linked to the launch device, meaning he can set the nukes into motion. As Raiden continues on, he starts to get more uneasy, less comfortable with the objective since his training hasn't prepared him for this at all. Raiden starts to get frustrated with the colonel as he starts to feel like he doesn't fully appreciate the risk of being in the field and pushes back against someone he sees as using him as an expendable piece.
You can take your simulation and we're out here, we bleed, we die.
Raiden also starts to feel like everything that is happening right before his eyes is impossible, like he's losing grip on reality.
It's like being in a nightmare you can't wake up from.
Only it doesn't really stop there. Upon making it to President Johnson's holding cell, the president confesses he willingly gave the nuclear launch codes to Ocelot in an attempt to gain true power. You see, Johnson reveals to Raiden that the entirety of American democracy is a drama put on by the true leaders of the country, the Patriots, a dozen men in power who run the entire show. Everything from policy changes to election cycles are all predetermined and carried out by the Patriots and their will, creating the illusion of participation to the Americans below. He was tired of being a pawn in the Patriots' chess game and wanted a bigger role by taking the little power he has and exploiting it, until he realizes he can never be anything more than an expendable piece. Johnson realized the implications of setting off a nuke in the atmosphere and had a change of heart, requesting Raiden kill him before Ocelot can launch the warhead. But Ocelot kills him first. It is then later revealed that Revolver Ocelot and Solidus Snake are trying to gain access to Arsenal Gear, an underwater fortress that contains a new artificial intelligence program called the GW. The big shell is a front for the AI, making it the perfect cover. Nukes were never the true goal, despite even the terrorists working with Ocelot believing they were. During his mission, he runs across Solid Snake and his partner Otacon. We also run across Emma Emmerich, a software engineer who happens to be Otacon's stepsister, which is all I'll say because that entire subplot sucks. After rescuing her from a potential watery demise, Emma uploads a computer virus to the GW in an attempt to destroy it from the inside and prevent it from giving nuclear weapon access to Ocelot. During the virus upload, the system crashes, making it hard to tell if Emma's bug worked. After this, Olga, in the suit of the cyborg ninja, a main character in the first game, captures Raiden and brings him before Solidus and Ocelot, where he is stripped naked and tortured, forcing him to come to grips with his past. Solidus killed Raiden's parents and took him under his wing to make him the perfect child soldier and killing machine. He was forced to kill people in a civil war every single day and was shown action movies with the other child soldiers to desensitize them from killing. Olga sets Raiden free, depending on him to finish the mission he was given because his life is tied to her child's life. If Raiden dies, her child dies. She is a double agent for the Patriots, forced to cooperate in return for her child's safety. After being set free, the virus Emma uploads starts to take effect after all, and this is when Raiden's world starts to collapse around him. The environment around him starts to artifact and code starts to appear over objects in the world. The game keeps sending false fission-mailed signals to the game and the screen freaks out. The kernel starts to glitch out and malfunction as he gets closer and closer to confronting Solidus and Ocelot. Rose reveals to him that she was a plant, made to spy on Raiden and report literally everything about him to the Patriots. Meanwhile, she was altering her entire personality and appearance in order to keep him engaged in their relationship. Truth is a constantly moving target, and it only gets weirder as it goes. Raiden goes from being in a relationship with someone who is genuinely in love with him to being another pawn in the Patriots' game, another piece to be manipulated and thrown away. And his feelings are confirmed when he arrives at the final face-off between Solidus and Ocelot. Ocelot reveals that he himself has been an agent of the Patriots all along and has been a part of an elaborate recreation of Shadow Moses, the location and mission of the first Metal Gear Solid game, in order to program a simulation that could accurately replicate the training of Solid Snake without fail, creating an infinite supply of the ultimate soldier. The plan is called the Solid Snake Simulation, or S3 for short. Raiden was chosen for this mission for a variety of reasons. His relationship with Solidus mirrors Solid Snake's relationship with Liquid Snake in the first game, creating a replicable scenario within the simulation. But above all else, Raiden was chosen to be the guinea pig for this mission because of his unwillingness to accept his past and shut it down, forcing himself to forget it, whereas all of the other child soldiers are forced to face themselves every single day. Raiden is the outlier. After participating in VR simulations hundreds of times and thinking he is prepared for a real-life field mission, Raiden finds himself unknowingly wrapped up in another totally fabricated set of tests that were designed to challenge his training. When I first played this game, it was over the course of weeks with my friend Leo. He watched as I experienced much of the story for the first time, and with so much time in between play sessions, things felt pretty disjointed. But I replayed it for footage, and that's when it all hit me. The truth was there all along. Those nods to the first game weren't nods at all. They were deliberately placed there. Instead of Vulcan Raven, a man with a chain gun that talks to crows, he's replaced by Fortune, an unkillable telepath who deflects bullets away from her, has a massive electricity rifle, and decides that if she can't die and be reunited with her family, that everyone else in her way will die instead. Replacing Psycho Mantis, Raiden faces Vamp, a literal vampire who can walk on water and refuses to die even after taking a bullet to the head. Even Cyborg Ninja makes an appearance, a main character of the first Metal Gear Solid who died protecting Snake from the Metal Gear Rex. Only it's Olga all along. Every single piece of the game was handcrafted and selected to put Raiden through these exact circumstances in these specific ways. Vamp and Fortune were chosen as part of a former group that trained soldiers, only they were recruited under the guise of vengeance. Defusing bombs around the big shell placed by Fat Man, the explosives expert who built a nuke when he was a child, was selected as a test to see if Raiden was even capable of carrying out the tests in the first place. Everyone had their part to play, and they didn't even know it. Before Ocelot's goal can be reached, Liquid Snake possesses him once again, vowing to steal the information Ocelot had to hunt down the Patriots and overthrow them. He takes off with Metal Gear Ray, and Snake chases after him as Arsenal beelines toward the Manhattan coastline. Atop of Arsenal during the grand finale of the game, the Colonel reveals that he is a construct of the artificial intelligence and says that while GW was destroyed and corrupted beyond repair, the S3 plan is still intact. Only it was never about Snake at all. The true plan was to set the true S3 plan into motion, the selection for societal sanity. The idea is to save the world from a digital age of misinformation and trivial knowledge drowning out the truth and facts. This monologue from the AI predicts a world where sensory overload at all times forces people into their own echo chambers as a result of not being able to parse the truth from fabrications and creating a world of division where everyone believes their truths are right. But in 2020, this feels less like a warning than it does a plea for a better future. The plea failed. When I went to school for journalism, my grand plan was to graduate and go work for a tech news outlet and report on all the exciting things happening in the space. But at some point around 2016, my vision of technology and the good it could do started to deteriorate. I started to see what the major tech companies were doing to harm the general public as opposed to improving it. Instead of pushing the truth to users, Facebook and Twitter instead pushed content users already agreed with or thought and gladly collected the ad revenue cut from clicks. They didn't care if they were dividing us. Facebook didn't care if an insurrection on the country's capital was planned on the platform or if it was fueled by bullshit the site pushed to them, creating a new reality they believed in. Instead of cracking down on harassment or misinformation campaigns that radicalize normal people, YouTube's algorithms instead pushed content to people it knew would engage. Their tech companies and their financial interests and the government's attempt to limit what you can share online are a constant threat to the truth, and that turned us into Raiden, just pawns in a system we don't have control over, living in realities crafted for us by the media we choose to engage with. We're constantly doom-scrolling and finding a new atrocity to be appalled at every single day, making it nearly impossible to focus on one issue for long enough to think about how we can help. We are angry, and we are subservient by design. And I'm not about to shy away from how hypocritical I am for talking shit on YouTube while building a platform on it. But thanks to the YouTube monopoly on videos created by a company large enough to offer free, unlimited hosting, we aren't going to see a worthy adversary or meaningful competition for the foreseeable future, if ever. I've been growing this seed of hatred toward technology for what it has become. For the sake of profit, these tech companies have forced us into bubbles of our own comfort when all we wanted back in the day was a virtual space to interact with friends. And instead, these spaces make us hate each other, isolating us from the people we used to care about. So like the article on climate change in the beginning, I don't know whether I find comfort in the fact that Hideo Kojima was worried about these issues back at the turn of the century and warned us all, or if I'm cursed with the knowledge that we could have avoided all this. Looking back on the media from the time the internet was born, it's bittersweet to see the excitement and the optimism of what we could achieve if the whole world was interconnected through a bunch of wires. And when I went into journalism, I shared that passion for the good technology could do for us. But the message of Metal Gear Solid 2 was a brutal reminder of the growing disdain I have for this field I used to love. 20 years ago, Metal Gear Solid 2 warned us about what the internet could become if we weren't careful. And now 2 decades later, Metal Gear Solid 2 is a symbol and reminder of our failures.